Let's plumb the depths of your unconscious mind. Do you know what an archetype is? Have you heard of the term archetype? You probably have, but I'm going to define it for you here. The idea of an archetype, the term for an archetype, certainly for me, it's most associated with Carl Jung, who was a psychiatrist in the early 20th century. He was actually connected to Sigmund Freud in a professional relationship. And Carl Jung is widely known for creating the concept of the collective unconscious, which is that simply by being born as human beings, we are connected into some kind of unconscious awareness. Now, where exactly this comes from is debatable, right? Some people think it's just like in brain structures, and some people think it's like out there. Some people think that it's spiritual, it's like God, it's whatever, right? And the idea, where it comes from is not the relevant part of this, but the idea, to me, certainly resonates. And so in this collective unconscious, what's in this collective unconscious? Well, in this collective unconscious is like, it's the total sum experience of all human beings throughout history. And importantly, it is perceived through archetypes. And an archetype is like the model of a particular relationship or role. So for example, and actually, honestly, like if you study classical philosophy and you learn about Plato, and Plato talks about the forms. And so we all have this idea of what the form of a table is, even though we don't have an actual table in our mind. And a table can look very different. Like one table from the next can be very different, but we have this like universal form of a table inside our mind. And the same thing goes for these relationships, these roles, these archetypes. So if I say father, you have an idea of what a father is and what a father means to you. And part of the idea of what a father means to you actually comes out of your own personal experience. But part of the idea of what a father means to you comes out of like the broader human experience, and where you see fathers showing up in stories, in media, now that we have this like unlimited access to media these days, showing up in different relationships. So there is, for example, there's the role of a priest as father inside the church, and there's roles that come out of that. And so there's these different archetypes. So there's things like father, there's the father archetype, there's the mother archetype, there's the king archetype, there's the queen archetype, there's the lover archetype, there's like a jester or a clown archetype. And these show up, like the really interesting thing is that these show up, part of why Jung called this like collective and thought about it as the entire human race, is these things show up in mythologies of cultures that have like not been connected for tens of thousands or even 100,000 years or more. Like it shows up independently in cultures from all around the world. We have stories about these different archetypal characters. And even like the classical polytheists, where people had lots of gods, like the Greeks and Romans, where they had lots of gods, these different gods would play these different roles, and these stories, these mythologies would come out of it. And like Asian mythology, African mythology, there's Native American mythology, there's all these mythologies that all speak to these different archetypes or roles. And we we like tap into that, and we feel it, and we recognize it as true. And this is why, for example, like the hero's journey, which was inspired by the work of Jung and the archetypes, the hero is another archetype. And the hero's journey is like this universal story told for all of recorded history, for all of oral history. We all tell a version of this story. And it's based on this archetypal journey of this archetypal hero character. And within ourselves, we feel the truth of these different archetypes as we step up and play different roles in our lives. So what does this all have to do with marketing now that we're almost 5 minutes in? Well, I actually heard a I heard a couple of copywriters talking recently, and they were talking about a niche that I haven't done a lot of work in, and it was dealing with relationships. And one of the things that they said was that it is much easier to get a control being the best performing ad, if that control is in a man's voice, meaning it is a man narrator of the video sales letter or a man's voice in the sales letter, even if it's like, in many cases, it's talking to women about relationships. It's just easier to write the control if it's in the man's voice, even if it's like sharing a woman's stories that the man knows. And like, that doesn't, certainly with gender equality and all of that, it doesn't have to be true. But I started wondering, like, why is that true? Like, why is it easier to do that? And maybe it's because these are men copywriters and they suck at writing in women's voices. And that's certainly a possibility. But it's also true that men are much more likely to play the role of the warrior, to step up into the warrior archetype. And there can certainly be women warriors, and we'll get to that in a second. But men are much more likely to step up and play this role of the warrior. And they're more likely to be known as a warrior, recognized as a warrior in the context of like life, like showing up. And so what is the warrior archetype? Well, the warrior archetype, if you think about it, the hero is the one who fights for personal glory. And the hero is like the immature version of the warrior archetype. The warrior archetype fights for truth and fights for justice and fights for good and fights to protect the kingdom. And the warrior will often self-sacrifice or give someone else the glory, as long as it means that truth is protected and good is protected. And so the warrior, like, what role does the warrior have in marketing? Well, the role of the warrior in marketing, the role of the warrior voice in marketing is not to like stand up and be like, guns, whatever. Like it's not soldier. It's not soldier. It is, I am fighting for you. I am fighting for the best outcome for you. I'm fighting for everything that is good for you. And I am willing to lay it all out. I'm willing to do everything possible to ensure that you get the best outcome in this situation. And maybe it's because people like to hear a masculine warrior more. Maybe it is because the copywriters are just better at embodying that voice if it's written from a man's perspective. And maybe a woman who is able to embody that warrior voice is able to beat the control more easily, having the entire promotion written in a woman's voice versus a man's voice. I don't know. But what I do know, what I take away from it, what I learn from it is that the more that I can live up to this warrior archetype in the voice, like how am I fighting for good through solving my prospects' problems or challenges? How am I fighting for justice and truth through helping my prospect? And how can I channel that inner warrior to make the pitch, to present my message, to align with my prospect in everything that I'm saying and the way that I'm saying it? And how can I be that warrior who is fighting for the prospect's good in my message? And when I'm able to do that, when I'm able to embody that, there's this natural natural resonance that happens. Like if you have somebody who is willing to go to the mat for you, if you have somebody who's got your back, if you have somebody who is there for your good and they're willing to fight for it, like what trust do you have in that person? And I'm sure the answer is a lot. And so when I think about this, like when I think about the warrior archetype, and when I think about how that can play into your marketing voice, the more that you can be on a crusade, not in the sense of the the terrible, bloody, nasty wars that happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but the more you can be on a positive crusade to improve your prospect's life, to be a warrior for their best life, the more attractive you will be to them. And that's not gender specific. There can be women warriors, there can be men warriors. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are that warrior and you are being strong for them, for their greater good and for the greater good. And if you can do that, your prospects love you. My name is Roy Furr. This has been a video issue of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. I hope that I've delivered a ton of value with this. I know that it's a little bit more heady, but this is stuff that I think about and get excited about and read about and learn about. And I don't always share, but honestly, this comes through and this changes my copywriting on a very, very high level in a very powerful way. And so I would love it if you'd leave a comment below and let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, how valuable did you find this very different message and why? What's your biggest takeaway? What's your biggest action item? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What? Let me know in the comments below. Also click that like button before you go so you get more content like this delivered to you. And so the magical algorithms of the internet know to share it with more people like you. You can certainly share it with folks directly. And if you're not yet subscribe here. Also go to breakthroughmarketingsecrets.com. Get my daily emails Monday through Friday, including these videos and more content, including exclusive content for email subscribers. Check out the links in the description. And if you really want to go deep, I'll include a link to my BTMS Insiders membership and training library, where I cover way more, where I go way deeper than even this. Again, my name is Roy Furr. This has been a video issue of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. I hope I've delivered that 10 out of 10 value. That's always what I'm aiming for here. And I look forward to seeing you again in our next video. See you soon. Bye.